So this is a wee song from Phoenix for what we're all waiting for after the coronavirus. I won't let you down, will not give you up. I have some faith in myself, it's the one good thing that I've got. I won't let you down, I will not give you up, 'cause I have the real love to stick around, oh yeah.
passed away, and that was the last straw for me.
I had to give up drinking because I wanted to fit in the society by working or even education. It's my health, really.
I was begging to find money to feed my habit that I wasn't enjoying doing anymore. I wasn't enjoying begging, and I thought, why am I doing it?
Being in hospital for 7 months and nearly dying, that still didn't stop me from relapsing.
I stopped begging, I stopped using, and I got help.
I only grew acceptance of my light bulb moment was when I went to CA, and I actually understood the, step 1 of the 12 steps.
I've been down for 3 years now, so I want to turn my life around, get back into the real world, and see my family and my children again.
I'm living very healthy today, physically and mentally, and I go to the groups, I join the groups to understand the reality, how to create my future really better than it used to be before.
I had many light bulb moments, but my last one was spiritually depressed. That's what brought me into recovery. To the harbour I've been coming just over 2 years, and I'm 8 months clean. I'm spiritual now and still strong in recovery. That was more than one question.
You've done it though!
Have I got rosy red cheeks then?
Yes, you had quite a bit of colour. My light bulb moment was when I first attended group therapy with a group called ChemCheck. It was the first time I realised I wasn't alone in my addiction, and I've never picked up since. And that was a year ago. I've been coming to the harbour for 2 years and attend group sessions, which helps me prolong my recovery. There was more to the universe than just me.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Easy carrot cake. You will need 300 ml of sunflower oil, 8 ounces of grated carrots, 8 ounces of brown sugar, 8 ounces of self-raising flour, and that would be 4 ounces each of white flour and wholemeal flour, 2 ounces each of peanuts, desiccated coconut and sultanas, and a spoonful each of mixed spice, ground cinnamon and nutmeg. And lastly, 4 eggs. Mix the sugar and the sunflower oil. And the eggs, one at a time. Add the peanuts, the sultanas, and the coconut. You add the carrots. Add the carrot and mix again. Lastly, you mix the flour with a teaspoon in each of the spices and add it to the mixture. The mixture should look something like this, quite runny, but all the nuts and the carrots have all been chopped up finer, but they're still there. If it's not this runny, you can add a bit of milk or orange juice to make it a bit runnier, but this is normally the right consistency. When you're done, pour the mixture in your prepared baking tin. Scrape all the mixture out, don't want to waste any. You then put it in the oven for approximately 90 minutes on gas mark between 3 and 4, around the middle of the oven, and just let it bake. Okay. Your cake is finished. You can decorate it how you wish. This is very simple. Little icing and orange juice mixed together just to give a little bit of decoration. The cake should last about a week or so. Or a bit longer if you keep it in the fridge. That's it.
Right, hi guys, we're going to look at making some fertiliser. I recently sent an email out to make nitrogen rich fertiliser using nettles, our favourite. At least we can thank the Romans for something. So basically what we need is about 3/4 of a bucket full of nettles. Picked fresh this morning, they're wilting a little bit. But we sling those in the bucket. Now it's always a good idea to get a little shovel. Just be careful if your bucket's flimsy. And just give them a little bit of a chop up. we should have is something that looks roughly like this. And then quite simply, I always recommend gloves as well, incidentally. Always wear your gloves with nettles.
Is that because they sting?
That is definitely because they sting. Then what we want is about, there's roughly, for a bucket, there's about 8 litres of water in here. Just tip the water in. Doesn't matter if it's got any other bits and pieces living in it. Back to your spade. Give it a little bit of a mix around. Now, normally, we need to leave this for a minimum of 2 weeks. If you can leave it a year, it would be brilliant. Just anyway, it doesn't need to be covered. Just leave it out so no one can kick it over or tip it away. And what you should end up with, this is after a couple of weeks, you get this dark coloured water. Now, this hasn't been strained because ideally you would strain this using a sieve of some description to get out any nettle cuttings and bits and pieces. But this will go a lot darker the longer you leave it. Now, if you add probably about, to every sort of 8 litres of water, if you added about half a litre of this, it'll give you an absolutely brilliant nitrogen rich fertiliser. And just remember to mark your bottle, do not drink. It stinks funky. In fact, it really does pong, but it's great for tomatoes, potatoes, things like this. Just don't overdo it with the potatoes and the tomatoes. If you're using this, maybe once a week, a little drizzle of this on, mixed up in some water, so it looks like a very, very weak tea. And it's just water as normal, and jobs are good. And I'd just like to say that plenty of nettles were harmed in the making of this video, but we don't really care. Thanks very much.
Hello there, my name is Gag. I'm 40 years old. I live with my wife and 2 children. My son, I have a son who's 9 years old and 1 daughter who's just about 15 months old. The reason I'm here talking to you is I would like to introduce you to meditation. So if you have already done meditation before, then it'll be really interesting to learn from you as well. If you haven't done any meditation or mindfulness before, it'll be really interesting again to engage, and something that you can learn and you know, try to experience as well. Now, what is meditation? That's the question usually get asked. People do ask why we should meditate. Okay, what is meditation? Meditation is a way of engaging with yourself, as simple it is. There's a science, there's a ancient science apparently, which focuses on how you can evolve from within. So when you say evolve, how you sort of, when you use that word evolve, it's about finding the inner balance within you. How it works is it works through your senses. You use your eyes, you see, you hear through your ears, obviously, smell, nose, taste or speak, mouth, and also touch as well, you know. So you engage with your senses to experience the moment there and then, the present. You're not looking into past, you're not looking into future, you're just looking at the situation there and then. So that's one aspect of it, you know. The second part is sort of observations. In the mindfulness or meditation, you tend to avoid any kind of judgmental thoughts. They may come to you, they will probably come to you, but with the practice, you learn to not to judge them quickly. You sort of just observe them, you look at them through your experience. You observe them and you sort of try initially not to engage with those things. The mind will take you into those thoughts and you will try to engage, but with the practice you will start to observe that you sort of learn a way to just observe them rather than engaging with them. So if I give you an example, when you look at the clouds in the sky, you don't really pay attention. You may pay attention sometimes, but most of the time you really don't pay attention to so many clouds. You might pay attention to 1 or 2, but then you can't really pay attention to each and every single cloud out in the sky. So the way it works is they just pass through. The one passes and the second comes up behind it, and then so on. So you don't really pay attention. And there's the same analogy you'll have to use. You would use with the thoughts as well. So when you do the meditation or mindfulness, you tend not to pay too much attention to those things. So for instance, if you close your eyes, if you try to engage with yourself through mindfulness or meditation way, it's kind of the same thing anyway. You know, it's meditative aspect is a bit more deeper. But anyhow, the point is when you try to engage with yourself, you will come across with different thoughts and different feelings and different ideas, sort of thing. So initially, if you have never done the meditation or mindfulness before, it will be a little bit more challenging, especially the part when you have to close your eyes. Is people find it really difficult if they haven't done meditation before. But you will find with time, you will start to find it a bit more easier, or a lot more easier, to just close your eyes and just enjoy the meditation part that you would have learned through practice. So in terms of the meditation part, you know, there is that science. There is that I would like to introduce to you, so you can get an idea of how to use that science in in your daily life. And the question is, one of the questions usually get asked, you know, why do people meditate? What's the point? You know, now meditation is all about finding the balance of your thoughts. The deeper science, the bigger science, is obviously about finding the meaningful within you. So you find something meaningful within you, and you sort of connect with that more often, because that's who you are really. You have the external world and responsibilities and situation to deal with, but there's also you who you should connect with more, you know. So for instance, if you spend time with your family, if you're sitting in a park or reading a book, those are the times when you're sort of trying to engage in the important aspects of your life really. Especially when you're on your own sort of thing. If you're listening to music, if you riding a bike, or if you're running, or if you're doing something that connects you from within, it is meaningful. So meditation brings in that aspect a bit more deeper, because you're doing a practice which focuses a bit more about within you. So that's the really interesting part, you know. If you have never done mindfulness meditation before, what you would obviously initially find this idea of connecting within or with yourself very vague. You think, well, why do I need to do that? I'll give you an example. So one of the exercise in mindfulness is, I don't know if you're aware of the mindfulness. First of all, what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is your awareness in the present time. So you acknowledge your presence, and without judging anything, you try not to judge anything, and you just experience what it is, how it is, where it is, and you don't go into why. You just go into just observing and trying not to pass any judgment. As a human behavior, we always try to judge, and you will experience that you're trying to judge anyway. So I'll give you an example. One of the exercises that with the mindfulness, there's different elements again. There's mindfulness eating, mindfulness listening, mindfulness talking. So there's lots of elements about mindfulness. One of the exercise is mindfulness eating. Within that mindfulness eating, the exercise is you take a grape, and you sort of, without just putting it into your mouth and eating it quickly, you just look at the grape, you look at the size, you look at the texture, you look at how it feels in your fingers, you sort of observe the a bit more, looking at that, and then you sort of put slowly into your mouth without eating it quickly, again putting in between your teeth and biting it slowly, and let the juices come into your mouth, and you sort of experience the bit more about eating grape in mindfully. Now the idea is not that you eat grapes or food like that, but the idea is that if you introduce that concept in your life, sort of maybe if you do like once a day or once a week, it doesn't really matter, but as long as you do mindfulness eating, what you will find, your relationship with food will change a lot, because you are allowing yourself to connect with what you're doing. You're engaging with your senses, with your taste, with your eyes, with a grape example obviously, with the fingers, the touch, and that's how you connect. And that's the analogy can be used in lots of different aspects. So if I talk about mindfulness listening, you're listening to a sound. It could be natural sounds in forest, or in a park, or near a lake, wherever you are, or even in the house with some music on. You sort of listen to the music in a mindful way, where you sort of taking it a bit more in a connected way. You're listening to something, and it might bring some visualization. So it's about taking a step back and just doing something that you wouldn't usually do. What's the benefit of doing that? The benefit is that, one, you train your mind to look at the things in a bigger picture. You start to look things in a bigger picture. You start to acknowledge things how they are, what they are, you know. You try to start to acknowledge those things. So when you do these mindfulness or meditation practice, your mind will get trained to sort of just work in a very balanced way. You know, you will start to experience that your thoughts, you start to experience that you're much more calmer if you weren't before, you know, or you start to experience that your routine, daily routine is very productive, is different. You'll experience that you have become more acceptive to different things, like, you know, so some of the things if you find hard to accept, to adapt with, where you think you should be flexible. And I'm not suggesting that you should become flexible. You know, obviously you would, wherever you find your difficulties with your thoughts or stresses or anxieties, you will find that your mind start to help you not to feel anxious or stressful in some of the difficult situations. So that's obviously we will discuss in more detail when we start. So watch the space and there will be more details. So I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Addiction is one head of the many-headed hydra, a monster that robs you of your love, empathy and compassion. Every day I battle this beast inside of me. Urges and cravings I do my best to resist. Putting the past behind me at last. To slay this thief, I had to change my whole life. Every day I strive. Now I must work hard daily. It's not easy giving up easy money on this path. No more sleeping in, being lazy. Wake up at the break of dawn. Be the early bird that catches the worm. Understand not everything is in our control. There isn't a person in the world that can claim perfection. However, in recovery, I have aims and ambitions. Taking intoxicants, drugs and alcohol, even controlled substances can make you happy. However, it's only temporarily. In its wake, withdrawals cause misery. You hurt and pain your loved ones. However, with professional help, we can slew all demons. Not be greedy and selfish. Try daily to be selfless. Finally able to truly love myself. I am recovery. I am your everything.
Hi guys, just thought I'd give you a little bit of a chat today about succession planting. So most of you are running a project at the minute where you're probably planting out a lot of produce, and the trick is to make sure we've got ongoing produce. No point in putting in sort of 300 potatoes all in one go and expect to have a crop sort of come January, because they'd probably all gone rotten or out of it. So what we're going to look at is succession planting. Now I'm going to use potatoes as an example, and this is really brief. What we have is we've got in here in this bed is our first earlies. Now we've got about 7 or 8 furrows of first earlies. That equates to about 160 seed potato. Now as these come to maturity and we start to pick them, they'll all soon diminish and they'll all go. So what we've done is we've got our second earlies. Now our second earlies are in the next sort of 5 or 6 furrows. So they'll come on later than these. So as these are starting to be picked and used, these are already coming to maturity. So that way we're going to have a constant supply. Now eventually we'll run out of those, so we need to go across and look at our main crop. Now the thing with the main crop is it's not actually in yet. You need to be looking at planting those out the end of April. So if you want to come this way, and I'll show you our main crop site. Now this ground's been furrowed, ready for planting up with the main crop. It's also had some chicken fertiliser down on it, just to let that start to really get into the ground, so it makes the main crop more viable and a bit healthier. Your main crop of potato you probably get a lot more from than you will from your earlies and second earlies. These should take us all the way through to sort of January, February time, which is absolutely brilliant. We can also look at how we could store potatoes at that point, but we're not getting to that right now. That's for a later date. Now if you want to come and have a look in the polytunnel, we've been looking at how we can succession our other fruit and veg, such as your cabbages, your kale, your broccoli. So if you want to come this way, now the way we've done this is we've already got some cabbage and kale and broccoli, etc. out. We've also got some plants that we're bringing on, such as our Brussels sprouts, lots of other kale and cabbage you can see in the pots up on the top here. But we need something to follow on from that, so we've got seeded up on the floor here. We've got everything else we need that's been dated up. So we put a date on it so we can keep track of the batch. Okay, so when they start to get used, the ones up on the shelf in the pots will be getting put out, and these ones will be starting to come to that point where they need bringing on, and they also will start to go out. So we have a nice constant supply of fruit and veg, and that's succession planting. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'll have a word with you all next week about something totally different. Cheers for now. Take care. Stay safe.
The higher you build your barriers, the taller I become. The farther you take my rights away, the faster I will run. You can deny me, you can decide to turn your face away. No matter, 'cause there's something inside so strong. I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was wrong. Oh no, something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. And all you refuse to hear my voice, the louder I will sing. You have behind walls of Jericho, your lies come tumbling. Deny my place in time, you squander wealth that's mine, my light doing me wrong, so wrong. You wanted my pride was gone. Oh no, something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. Brothers and sisters, when they insist we're just not good enough. When we know better, just look them in the eyes and say, I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm gonna do it anyway. Something inside so strong. And I know that I can make it, but it's doing me wrong, so wrong. Thought that my pride was gone. Oh no. Something inside so strong. Whoa, something inside so strong. Brothers and sisters, when they exist, they're just not good enough. When we know better, just look them in the eyes and say, I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm gonna do it anyway. We're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna do it anyway. Something inside so strong. I know that I can make it, but you're doing me wrong, so wrong. So that my pride was gone. Oh no. Something inside so strong. I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. So that my pride was gone. Oh no. Something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. Something inside so
Welcome to our quick video maker's guide using a smartphone. While this is intended for smartphone users, we're sure you'll be able to put this knowledge to good use on dedicated video cameras too. We'll be covering the basics like storyboarding, framing, lighting and equipment. So without further ado, let's get to it. A storyboard is the visual blueprint for your film, and it's a great way to plan your camera angles. Don't worry too much on the details, as long as it makes sense to you, that's all that matters. Chances are your film won't need a script, but if your video needs dialogue, then don't forget to include it in your storyboard. If you're interested in making a documentary, then a 2-column script is your best bet for planning. Like the name suggests, you'll be planning with 2 columns, one for video and one for audio. Unlike a storyboard, this script is purely text-based and prioritizes what you should aim to get, rather than how you get it. Because you'll be putting together your video and audio from different sources, locations and times, this will help make sense of things when you get around to your edit. It's important to have a story or intended conclusion in mind when you plan your shots. If you're going in with an open mind, you should plan it around a subject or theme. Make sure you take your script with you on the shoot day. Tick off the shots you get as you go along and be prepared to make changes. You never know what you might get. Here are some quick tips on how to get well thought out shots for your storyboard and shoot day. The main technique we'll talk about is the rule of thirds. It's a 9-section grid of equal proportions, and in our case it would look something like this. You can use these horizontal and vertical lines to frame up your subject. These lines are where our eyes are naturally drawn to. With them, we can guide our viewers towards what we want them to see. If you look at me, you'll see that we've framed my eyes on the top horizontal line and my body is on the left vertical line. Matching our frames like this can help keep a smooth and natural flow between our shots. It can also give our audience a subtle clue of what to expect next. Another thing worth mentioning is where the lines intersect. These points can also be used to frame your subjects too. For example, we could use 2 points for a shot like this, and use the same 2 points from a different angle like this. A change in distance can help freshen up the audience perspectives and keep things interesting. Try and frame your shots from different distances to visually stimulate your audience. For example, you could use close-ups to evoke a sense of intimacy or uneasiness. Or use wide shots to make your subjects appear distant and isolated. If you want to learn more about the rule of thirds, you'll be able to find lots online about it. Another good exercise is to try and visualize it when watching a TV show or movie. You'll find many creative examples, and these can be a great source of inspiration. You'll want to pick an area where you'll have as much control as possible. Think about the best time to get your footage. For example, when there is less traffic or passers-by if there are any. Make sure you pick a nice quiet area because sound is important and you don't want too many interruptions on your shoot. Be wary of loud traffic, roadworks, alarms, airplanes, etc. The control you have on the outside world will be very limited, so leave plenty of time for your shoot. Too much can overexpose your image, making the shadows very dark and the lighter areas very washed out. Too little may reduce visibility and appear grainy. Try and get a nice balance between the two. Try not to shoot towards your subjects when they have a light source behind them if you don't want them silhouetted. Of course, totally use this if that's what you're going for. Remember to turn your grid on your smartphone and use the rule of thirds to frame up your shots. If you're using a smartphone to record video, be aware that you may have to get fairly up close to your subject because phone lenses are designed to cover wide areas. If you're up in someone's face with your phone, definitely give them some reassurance that it's not as close as they think on screen. Make sure you have enough storage space to keep all your videos. Videos can fill up your phone storage space quite quickly, so you'll want to keep an eye on it while you record. If you have a stand that can keep your phone upright on its own, definitely use it as it will keep your shots nice and steady. Octopus stands like this work well too, which you can find online for around £10. When recording sound, the closer up you can get, the better. And keep your phone still so you don't pick up any bumps or rustling. There aren't many ways to improve the sound quality with standard kit, but there are smartphone accessories such as plug-in microphones and lapel mics, which you'll be able to shop around online for about £15 upwards. Now that you have your video files, it's time to edit. And for that, you'll need editing software. This will be a general guide to consider what options there are. Each program works differently, so we won't be covering how they work, but rest assured there are plenty of tutorials and guides online that cover these areas for each one. Best of all, they are free. If you own an Apple desktop or laptop computer, you'll be able to pick up a free copy of iMovie from the App Store. It's laid out in an intuitive way and should fill most of your editing needs. If you're on Windows or even Mac, then we would recommend Shortcut. Its interface is closer to a more traditional video editing workflow, and there are plenty of starter guides that will have you editing in no time. That's all the bases covered. We hope this video has helped and look forward to seeing your submissions soon.
I always sang. I don't remember like a time when I suddenly thought, oh, I can sing. When I was a toddler, my mum and dad discovered that I was deaf in my right ear, completely deaf. When I'm on stage, it can be difficult because I need the other band members to be on my good side and I need the monitor to be on my good side. But I think it's quite cool being a half-deaf singer. Well, I grew up in the countryside and I always find it so grounding and healing to be on my own in nature, in the woods. Somebody gave me a guitar and I learnt a few chords and I didn't think it was any good, but there's a little chink of hope that that I could do this, that I could actually write my own music, which is something I'd always dreamed about doing. I've suffered with mental illness since I was a teenager. I always suffered with terrible social anxiety, so I quickly found out that alcohol was really effective to deal with social anxiety, and I also didn't realise until I got a diagnosis about 5 years ago that I suffer with body dysmorphia disorder, and I've had a suicide attempt when I was 21. It's been a journey discovering what is what, and there's a lot of crossover between my addiction and mental illness because they drive each other. So since I came into recovery, I realised that I had to connect to a community of people that were going through the same struggles as I was. I tried to go to a meeting every day.
Miss Katie Caboose, come on!
I never thought that I would be able to get on stage and perform without a drink. The gig went really well and I'm really chuffed. Basically, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for my recovery connections. And now it's time to go home and have a cup of tea.